Hey, everybody, welcome to What Drives Us. It's Russell Frost, your host, here with Patrick Connor, one of our faithful and regular What Drives Us panelists. Patrick and I are going to discuss an article he wrote in March of 2018, and we're going to dive deep. So get ready. Here we go.
Buckle up.
I like that. Buckle up, Buttercup. This isn't even really a live broadcast. I mean, it is because we have to broadcast, but we're going to be editing this show a little bit. So if you're here, if you happen to follow the notice, thanks for being a subscriber and thanks for tuning in. Patrick and I are going to discuss an article that he wrote 51 weeks ago on his site, carswithcords.net. He wrote a really interesting article about Tesla Moats. I think, did I send you an email at the time?
I don't know. We had mentioned it on the show, and there were all those Tesla killers that I was kind of trying to address.
Yeah.
We talked about it on the show way back then.
Did we talk about, because I remember writing a response at that time, and I thought maybe I sent it to you, or maybe we just read it on the show. But anyway, I was obviously fascinated. I'm sorry, Patrick, go ahead.
No.
I was fascinated by the article at the time, and I still am a year later. So what I wanted to do is I actually went back and read through Patrick's article again and kind of wrote down some notes just about what I thought a year later, how these things were. And then I said, hey, Patrick, you want to talk about this? And Patrick Connor, that's sort of an introduction, I guess. I don't know.
All right. Yeah.
Who you recognize undoubtedly from many, many episodes of What Drives Us is here. As a matter of disclosure, since we're going to be making some disclosures, I am a former Tesla employee for a short time, but I have no stock. I don't own any vehicles, and I have no material interest in their success or failure. I have a deep and abiding personal interest in seeing their success.
Yep, and I have never worked for Tesla. Well, at least not yet. And but I am a Tesla owner and a Tesla shareholder.
So there you go. That's who we are, besides who you know us to be. Patrick, there's 17 moats that you had noted in that article. And we're just going to go through them one by one and start.
Okay. Yeah, so as you said, I wrote this a year ago. You might have read it recently, but I haven't. But that's okay. I'll stand. That'll make it a more interesting discussion and take it in new ways.
I'm hoping, yeah. I mean, rather than reading the whole thing, because it was a very detailed article. It was a nicely put together piece. So yeah, let's talk about moat number one. Moat number one was stores and direct sales.
Right. So we have talked about how dealerships are often people's, let's say, least favorite part of the car buying, owning experience. And Tesla doesn't have dealerships. Instead, they have stores and where you can go in and check out the cars. And for the most part, the people there are not, commission salespeople, although they have changed that some. They have used some commissions. But when I wrote this, as far as at that time, I didn't think they had any commission people. But they had some bonuses and some other things that they've done they've changed their program, as they changed many things. That's one of the things about Tesla is that they are not like other car companies. They change things radically. They do things in different ways. And so that's going to come up over and over during this. I feel like I'm getting off your topic. You asked about dealerships and direct sales. So with other car companies, you don't buy a car from, say, Ford. You buy it instead from a Ford dealership. That Ford dealership is independent from Ford, and that means whatever they sell you, they have to make some profit on it too, whether it's in the sale initially or in the service that follows it. Tesla's model is completely different. They sell you a car that they hopefully make money on, and you're buying it from them, and that changes a lot of things for the company and how they deal with you and deal directly. And it's not like other car companies. In fact, other car companies probably could not do this because the way the laws are written, you can't compete with the dealerships that have been established. So
franchise dealer laws in 50 states prevent them from doing that.
Exactly. Yeah. And that was sort of the title of this was Tesla Moats, why they can do things that other car companies only dream of. And certainly some car companies would love to have all of that revenue to themselves. There's some advantages they have with dealerships. Like as soon as they make a car, they ship it to a dealership and they can count the profit right away. They don't have to, if it sits on the dealer's lot for 140 days, they don't care.
I'm going to address that specific thing that Patrick brought up under the dealerships heading. And Patrick
okay.
admitted.
Yeah. The stores and dealerships are intertwined. And
right.
Yeah, as we talked about, I would rearrange a lot of these things now if I were to rewrite it.
And I don't hold that against Patrick at all. I can't think of anything that I wrote a year ago that I couldn't probably edit right now and make better. So that is definitely not something unique to this thing. But suffice to say, I agreed with Patrick about stores and direct sales. Although I do want to say, again, just having the advantage of having been inside Tesla, that Patrick's wrong, that their stores, their car people did get bonuses or commissions, depending on how you want to cut it, for vehicles sold. They have always been that way up until the beginning of this month when Tesla stopped that. So they did have that in common, and that there was a financial interest in their people selling you a vehicle. Now, that's not a bad thing, because Tesla also was very strong about making sure their sales advisors, weren't the same as salespeople at franchise dealers. Get them in, get them out as quick as you can, sell them what you need. You know what I mean? Whatever, it doesn't matter.
Let's ride today.
Yeah, exactly. What can I get you in today? And anyone who's bought a car from a dealer has experienced that. Now, the weakness, I think Elon has filled this moat in. I don't think that moat counts anymore. He originally closed all the stores at the end of last month, and then at the beginning of this month, he said, no, now they're under review. It's my opinion.
They didn't close them. They announced they were going to close them, and they closed 10% of them.
Right.
And all the others were, had the sword of Damocles over their head. So they didn't actually get closed.
Absolutely. Right. And part of that sword of Damocles is they cut all of those car advisors' pay by about 50% or more, because they took away all of the bonus structure.
Right.
So what they did is they're basically just paying them to be hourly employees. Again, nothing wrong with that. But what that does is the people that have worked for you for a long time, that are used to earning a certain living, now suddenly that living is gone. And what that's going to result in is a huge turnover, which is part of, in my opinion, what Tesla wants. And again, part of my opinion is they want to do this so they don't have to lay them off, because they are going to close these stores. They can't afford to keep them.
We'll see about that. I really think that it would be a mistake to close the stores. I said that when they announced it. That
yes. With
the Model Y coming out, you're trying to go to a much wider audience than you've ever had in the past. You want this to become a car that anybody who has heard of Tesla can go buy. And for most people, that means they're going to want to sit in it and touch and feel and test drive. And how do you do that if there are no store locations? So I really think that the stores are one of their strengths and one of their things that are going to help them grow. So I'm glad to hear that they've reversed that decision, at least for now. Although you might, as we said earlier, things change often and frequently, so we'll see what happens. But I think the stores are a great thing for them to have.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what Elon's phrase "under review" means, but to me, it sounds like somebody realized that closing them right now was a mistake, and that later on, I think they've made their intention clear.
Right. Although there are still some new store locations that they're considering. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with him saying we're going to open stores in some locations if they turn out not to be productive for us by whatever metric they're using, since they're not going to actually sell there. They're just going to have foot traffic and then orders placed online. So it makes sense to not keep open stores that aren't performing well.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. I don't think Tesla should be burdened with that any more than any company, right? But again, I think it's sort of the capricious nature of what happened at the end of February, the beginning of March, that leads me to think that this isn't a strength that Tesla's going to be able to claim much longer.
Okay, but you agree right now, at this moment,
I
as we
agree that
speak.
as it stands, well, again, I don't. I know some other things that I can't really talk about, but let's just say that the staff in those stores has been decimated. Stores
Yeah.
stores that maybe had 16 to 25 employees now have 5.
Right. Well, recruiting talent is one of the items on this list. So,
It is, and we're going to talk about recruiting talent when we get
yeah.
to that, won't we?
Right.
Let's
Yeah.
go to the next one.
Okay.
Uh, Connected cars and over-the-air updates, what we'd love to call OTA, right?
Yes. Yes. In fact, so Tesla had a hackathon, and just recently I saw an article yesterday about it. Somebody hacked into the car, and as for being that white hat hacker, they gave them the car for free. So
Yeah,
how cool is that? And
that's brilliant.
yeah, one of the things that most car companies are worried about is people being able to hack into their cars. So how do you keep that? You minimize attackable surfaces is the phrase. And if you have a car with over-the-air updates where someone can connect to it via Wi-Fi or LTE or whatever, then those are all attack surfaces. And if you have a web browser in there, those have security flaws that you might be able to exploit. So Tesla is out there and going for it, and they're doing all the right things to keep their cars secure. I actually watched a talk by a couple of hackers when they said, "Oh yeah, we've cracked a bunch of cars." And when we cracked a Tesla car, we told them like we do all the others, and something weird happened. Tesla sent engineers and not lawyers. And they were like, "How did you guys do this?" "Oh wow, oh yeah, you're right. We'll fix that." And they had a fix within 48 hours. Then and they said, "Okay, now can you guys break into it?" And they plugged the holes that those guys had found. So having a bug bounty, having active hackathons, and really engaging with that community of security community is the right way to handle it. So I think Tesla is doing a great job with this. And the over-the-air updates. I had a Nissan Leaf. I bought one of the first couple thousand, and I would get real-time traffic if I had satellite service, which I only had for the first 90 days. And then after that, I would get occasional updates on charging station locations. But then when they had a major firmware update that changed the whole battery management, I had to go to the dealership. And then when I had scheduled this appointment, I went to the dealership. They said, "Oh, we have to download it from Nissan, and that's going to take an hour." I'm like, "Well, what do you mean? My car is here and ready, and I had this appointment." And then it took like 4 hours for me to get this update, and it was a pain in the ass. Unlike my Tesla, where I go out and hey, there's a new update, and sometimes it even has cool Easter eggs, and you get them, every quarter or so. It's so much better. Go ahead,
What?
Russell.
No, no, no. I guess what? I'm not gonna argue against Patrick here. I am gonna say there's no doubt that Tesla's connected car OTA program is one of the biggest strengths they have. It is absolutely, and that other vehicle companies don't do it, is reduces the amount that those companies are willing to or can update their vehicles quickly. Now, the downside to the OT update, and we haven't seen this yet that we know of, but there's a liability here, and that is one bad OTA update. One, if it's not carefully considered, if it's not something that, if it bricks your car, or if suddenly the brakes don't work, or suddenly it does something else, or the screen goes blank, or whatever.
Yeah.
That's the danger of the OTA update. And that's why other companies say they don't do them. Now, I don't buy that excuse. I think they should do them, and they should carefully vet them and test them and then push them out, because that means you're taking care of your customers as best you can. But I worry about a Tesla that seems to be more and more erratic, seems to be doing things more and more on the fly, sending an OTA update that changes the basic operating parameters of the vehicle. That potentially dangerous.
Yeah, there's definitely a risk to that, and that's another blanket category that you can put Tesla in that other car companies are not willing to tread into is taking big risks.
In this case, it's a big risk with your car.
Right? Yeah.
You know, I mean, it's because you don't even, if I'm, and you know what, forgive me, Patrick, because I didn't work in vehicle sales and you own a couple, you don't, it's not an approval thing. It just happens. You come in your car in the morning and go, oh, look, they pushed a new update.
Well, when you get pushed, there's a little yellow clock that shows up on the GUI, and you can pick when you want it to install. I'm not sure how long you can delay it. I'm always doing the opposite and trying to do it
Get
as
it
soon
as
as
soon as
possible.
possible. Sure. And most
Yeah,
Tesla owners are, right?
right.
Because you're
Yes.
getting Easter eggs or enhanced braking or enhanced performance or battery life or something like that. And that's fantastic.
Yeah, there were some people that were not happy with the 9.0 software release where they changed significant changes to the GUI. For example, the backup camera, if you have the vertical screen, would only show on the bottom. And there were some people that used to put it on the top and they really liked it there and they couldn't get it that way anymore and they were upset about it. And enough of them made noise that in the next version 9.1 or some follow on to that they corrected that and made it possible again. So that's the other thing, is that they're responsive to feedback. When Consumer Reports said that the braking distance wasn't that good, they did a software update and improved it.
Which is an example of both good and bad.
Yes.
In my opinion, right? Okay, so you see where I'm going with that. In that, how did the car get pushed out with poor braking performance? But thankfully, they could fix it with an OTA.
Right, and it all depends on how you're testing it, right? So in the tests that Tesla did, it was working great enough for them to consider releasable. And then when they found out how Consumer Reports was doing, as soon as Consumer Reports told them that, they were like, well, how are you testing it? Oh, that's not how we tested it. Let's see how that's working. And now, there's you can always find a case where a particular vehicle is going to perform poorly. And being able to adjust for that is the beauty of this.
Okay. There you go. Moat number 3, no dealerships.
Oh yeah, so I think I mixed this one up with your store comment earlier. So
yeah,
dealerships tend to make most of their profit off of service, and we just talked about OTA. In some states, doing an OTA update would mean that you don't take your car into the dealership, which means the dealership doesn't have a chance to upsell you on whatever specials they have that month, and they want that traffic onto their lot because that's their chance to make money. So I don't know of any particular manufacturer that the dealership laws don't allow them to do OTAs, but I would not be surprised because some of the dealerships are so strong, the enforcement that they have.
Interesting point. I'm not aware of any of the franchise dealer laws that talk about OTA. And it's my understanding that primarily because a lot of these were written in the 40s and 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
Long before the word software was even really a thing.
Right.
So Patrick mentioned one, no dealerships is, again, I would agree with him that it's a strength in that you're not having literally a separate company represent and sell your product to the public. Tesla represents its own product and sells it directly to the public. So if there's any miscommunication, if there's anything bad, it's on Tesla.
Right.
That also means that sales experience is controlled by them.
Yes.
That's a good thing.
Absolutely, because we've talked about them on the show. Many people going in to buy, I don't want to throw rocks at any particular name, but to an electric car, and the salesman saying, well, hey, look at this gas-powered car. It gets great mileage. Those electrics, we don't even have that one charged up. You don't even want to look at those. And guiding people away from them, even though that's what they came in for. They want to sell what they know, and that's what they've been selling for years. That's what they have experience with. That's what they get maintenance dollars off of. That's what they want to sell, is gas cars for most of them. And look at Fisker. They tried to go through dealership models, and that was just one of the many problems they had.
Yeah, but again, keep in mind that your local car dealer, your Ford, Chevy, whoever, Fiat, Dodge, Chrysler, all of those dealerships are separate companies. They're not part of General Motors or Ford or FCA or whoever, or Toyota or Nissan. They are separate companies that they literally buy vehicles from the manufacturer the US distributor. So the advantage to the manufacturer in this case, let's just pick Nissan, right? The advantage is every time Nissan ships a Leaf to a dealer, Nissan collects a check, which means Nissan has more cash flow. Now, that would be a huge benefit to Tesla, who is very, very cash poor right now and could really use that.
Right.
Balance.
Yeah. They're doing all these end of quarter pushes to try to get as many cars out as they can, where if they were just shipping them to a dealership, they wouldn't have to rush to get them in the customer's hands and do all that delivery. They could just say, oh, yep, they're on the ship headed there. We'll count that. Cha-ching.
That's the thing. As soon as the dealer makes that order, boom, that's a sale to the manufacturer. Okay. So until you buy it, then that franchise dealer makes money. So that's a strength that Tesla can't leverage. Now, again, does that balance out being able to represent themselves? I don't know.
Yeah, at this stage of the game with electric cars, I think it does. Maybe 10 years from now, that'll be different, where, half or more or all, hopefully, the cars on the lot are electric. Then they won't be competing against the gas cars and have that bias of the salesman shoving you towards what they know and love.
Yeah. And I'm going to disagree with Patrick a little bit here in that I think this is a huge weakness for Tesla right now. They're struggling financially. And that cash flow that would come from a dealer network would certainly, definitely have them not where they are right now.
Yeah. So again, I'm going to try not to play this card too much. A year ago when I wrote this, profitability was not a goal at that point in time.
Right.
Growth and expansion was the goal. And I've even said on the show when Elon Musk announced that they were going to become profitable in Q4 and every quarter from then on, or whatever he said, I was like, oh no, that's a huge mistake. They have so much growth that they needed to do, gigafactories that they need to build on multiple continents, massive supercharger deployment, the semi and the mega charger for the semi. That I thought shooting for profitability at that point was a mistake. But we'll get into that one with investor expectations. So I'll keep that powder dry.
Keep it dry, man. Keep it dry. Next one. The next Moat, Panasonic partnership. What could go wrong with that?
So certainly Panasonic, Tesla's not the only one to have any partnerships with them. But the fact that they could ramp up their gigafactory and battery production so quickly, you have to have a partner that has existing technology that is tried and true, and that's what they got from Panasonic. And they've made multiple chemistry improvements as well as changing the size of the batteries over time. So some of that is in partnership with Panasonic, and some of it is Tesla on their own. But Panasonic was a great partner. They invested, I don't remember what the number was in the article, $1.6 billion into the Gigafactory. And so that was definitely a big help to Tesla.
And they brought with them. So I'm going to agree with Patrick that I think the Panasonic partnership is almost entirely good. If not entirely good, other than some rumblings that maybe Panasonic isn't exactly delighted with the partnership as they might have been when it started, which could be scary. But for Tesla, that partnership has been nothing but good. Panasonic brings with them tons of technological experience in manufacturing battery cells, which Tesla has zero of. They have ideas and they have things to do, but they take that to Panasonic and Panasonic makes it a reality. That is a brilliant partnership.
It is. Yeah. They're I don't know how many full-time Panasonic employees at the Gigafactory, but there are several. And so that was because when Tesla started, they weren't making batteries. They were packaging batteries and making cars. And so and Panasonic was the one supplying those batteries. And in fact, are still supplying the batteries for the S and X. Those come from Panasonic directly. They're not made at the Gigafactory, the 18650s. Or what is it that you call them, Russell?
18650? 18650?
Yeah, you say it different than I do.
18650, 18650. I'm kind of both. I'm all over the place.
Okay.
I don't think there's a right way to say it. Let's put it that way. Not that I know of, but what do I know? I'm just this guy. So I mean, I think that's a good thing, and I hope for Tesla's sake that they can maintain that partnership. But I think that's super important to their continued success.
Yeah, and I wonder about the Maxwell acquisition that just happened and how that's going to impact that relationship going forward.
A
It'll,
weird one because I don't know. Yeah, how are they integrating that? What product? Uh, is it super caps? Is it something else?
right. Yeah,
Uh,
we can only speculate at this point. One of the people in the chat room on one of your shows said that having a super cap for the semi truck for regen braking and acceleration, and that seems like a great idea. But I don't think Tesla would have bought them for that. I think there's something deeper there that we haven't heard about yet.
well, we'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see. Moat number 5, EV Mindshare.
Oh yeah. So if anybody comes out with an EV, there's going to be articles written comparing them to Tesla. Tesla is the way the Prius was the hybrid, and every hybrid that came out was a Prius killer. Any EV that comes out is a Tesla killer,
It's so
and
annoying.
it is. But they are the benchmark by which everybody else is being compared. They are the ones that have invested in this early and heavily. And when you think EVs, most people, Tesla comes to mind, and that's being the Kleenex of the brand is a strong position.
And I don't know that they're entirely Kleenex, but I give them 85% of that, which is pretty good.
Right.
There's no doubt that Tesla's the sexy, cool EV that everybody wants.
Right.
Even
Yeah.
though there are bigger, faster ones, they're radically more expensive. They're made in very, very small numbers. Tesla is the popular performance luxury electric vehicle.
Right. Yep.
Now, the downside to being a keyword, if you will, and Tesla is definitely one of those clickbait keywords that everybody wants to talk about. Elon Musk, one of those clickbait keywords that everyone wants to talk about. Every time Mr. Musk says, I'm sorry, Mr. 420 makes a silly joke or calls somebody a pedo or does something questionable,
we have
everybody knows it.
yes, we have Rockstar CEO later on the list if you want to.
Yeah, I don't want to get too deep into that other than to say I think it's EV Mindshare is a great thing as long as you handle it well.
Right. And maybe we should take a step back here on these moats. None of these are impenetrable moats, right?
No.
These are not event horizons for a black hole. These are things that strengths that Tesla has, some things that would be difficult for other car companies to do. But like we talked about earlier, if they close all their stores, obviously that's no longer a strength they have of having stores. And having this EV Mindshare cuts both ways as well. Anytime there's a crash in a Tesla and somebody dies, it's major news, even though that happens 20 times a day in other cars, and those don't become mega news stories. So it does cut both ways to have this media attention. Absolutely.
It can definitely sink them like a stone just as much as it can offer them meteoric rises in attention and sales, right? Or in stock price, maybe I should say.
Yep. Just like we talked about with OTA, if it goes bad, it's going to get attention and it's going to be an exaggerated swing of public sentiment and stock price and who knows what else.
Absolutely. And all of a sudden regulators could look at that and go, you know what? We need to regulate OTA.
Right. Yeah, that absolutely could happen. And then they have to go through a lot longer certification process, and then we'll never see another fart mode. And that would be tragic.
Let's regulate it today. Let's regulate it. I'm definitely not here for fart mode. I gotta I love some of the sense of humor things, and on the other side, everything else better be rock solid and bulletproof.
Yeah, in Santa mode, the turn signal noise changes, and I was actually surprised that didn't have to go through some certification, because the whole click cluck click cluck of a turn signal is well understood and sort of but the jingle bells sounds that it has when you're in that mode are different. And it's cool that they can do it. Like I said, Tesla's willing to take a chance. maybe the regulators will come back and bite them for it and rein them in a bit, but we'll see.
We'll see. Let's see. Number 6, Moat number 6. Tesla is mission driven. They have the brand and the rabid fans.
Right. Yes. If any traditional or legacy car company comes out with something that's even considered a green car by any measure, they're very much saying that means the rest of their products are sort of brown. And so being mission driven to say, hey, we are an electric car company. Maybe I'm confusing this one. Is Pure Play under this as well, or is that a separate line
Pure
item?
Play?
Yeah. So let's lump it in here, and if I'm wrong. So
yeah, I don't have any recollection of even what.
Okay, yeah, maybe that was just a tagline in my head. So
Okay.
Tesla's a pure electric car company, so they don't
Gotcha.
have that internal conflict of interest of saying, clean diesel really is also great, but we'll do some electric cars. No, they are a pure play, 100% battery electric company, and so they don't have that mixed message. They are mission driven. There aren't a whole lot of other CEOs that you see out there talking about how we're running this horrible experiment with the planet, and if there's no reason to run the experiment, we should just stop putting out carbon because maybe it'll be beneficial, maybe it will be tragically horrible. So let's not find out because it's most likely tragically horrible. That's what all the reputable scientists are saying. So let's move on. And the fact that they have that mission, it's a core part of the company to move to renewable energy and transportation powered by renewable energy. That is what their mission of the company is. That's a rallying cry that people can get behind. It's not a mixed message. And I think that helps a lot of people really believe in Tesla and want to be part of that community, want to be part of that vision, want to buy their products, want to defend their company when the media goes at them or right or wrong. And we've talked about how sometimes Tesla does things that why'd they do that? They shouldn't be doing that. And if you point them out, there are still fans coming at you saying, "Don't you ever say anything bad about them." So the fans are rabid, and that kind of loyalty gets them through some missteps that would be more devastating to companies without that devotion. You can argue that some people take it too far, and they. I'm not saying you should attack journalists online and call them horrible names. Please don't do that. Don't be a Tesla bro. That's just not cool at all. But there are people that are like that, and there are just people who love it, and because it's a mission-driven company with something that's important for our future.
Really? I just want to see if a one-word comeback would shake you at all. So I got to break this down.
Okay, there's a few things in there. Go
into
ahead.
a few things. So mission-driven. I think Tesla's lost that. I don't think they're mission-driven anymore. And some of this we're going to talk about in vertical integration down below, number 9. But
okay.
I think Tesla's lost its mission. I think what they've done to residential solar takes that away. I think.
Yeah. I agree that
Let me go one step further though with that.
All right, go ahead.
It's not just residential solar. It's solar powered superchargers. It's battery swapping. It's a whole bunch of things that were all about that transition, accelerating the transition to sustainable, to clean energy, right? And really, they're a car company.
So I think of them more as a technology company that makes cars. And but let's get back to your I wish they were doing more with solar, and I definitely think that they will be when they get the solar roof issues worked out. And you can argue about whether or not how hard they're really working on that.
It's not going to happen.
But beer bet. Okay, beer bet on that. But
That's a whole case of beer, buddy.
okay, a whole case of beer. We'll have to put a timeline on it. So I think in the public mind, that is still part of who Tesla is. They are still a
Yes.
solar company. They're putting out the massive battery packs that are in Australia that are backing up their uh, solar and wind. Or is it just solar? But anyway, they
Solar,
are
yeah.
definitely still doing major renewable energy, and it is still a major part of the company. And it is this is about the public mindset of Tesla, and they are a renewable energy company as well as a car company.
I'm gonna disagree with you, and I think that's because Tesla, for whatever reason, maybe good reasons, maybe bad reasons, Tesla isn't that vertically integrated, clean energy company that they might have been 2 years ago. I think they've had to focus on cars. They have focused on cars to the detriment of everything else.
Right.
They've done some high-profile, big projects, Puerto Rico, Australia, but that's otherwise. I mean, they have literally killed their solar division. Uh, they're not delivering the products that they've talked about: solar roof, Powerwall. There are some Powerwalls out there, but ask the people who have them, how long they waited for them. Hey, how long ago were you promised your Powerwall?
Right. Yeah. So hopefully I get it this year. We'll see.
Yeah.
So I think they've killed it is taking that to an extreme. They've
Just a different opinion.
Downsized it. They've deprioritized it. They have not killed it.
Do you know
right?
how many solar advisors are in the current existing Tesla stores?
No, I don't. Oh yeah, is it zero? Huh?
Yeah.
If you're on the podcast, he just gave a goose egg symbol. We'll see. Actually,
I'm sorry, right? If you're listening, yeah, Russell did a 0. And I don't think you do that unless you're getting out of the business. And I don't think they want to talk about it because it is a black eye for them. And I don't even know that if it means the survival for the company, that it's a bad thing. But you also don't get to hug that green mantle anymore. You know, you don't get to wear that halo if you're not doing it.
Right. Well, I still have Tesla solar panels on my roof that are working every day, especially now that spring is here. They're working even better. So that's great.
You mean Panasonic solar panels sold to you by Tesla, correct?
Yes.
Just saying. So the other point I wanted to make was a brand. And I do think that some of the shenanigans with Elon is taking a little bit of the shine off the Tesla brand. Not a lot, because that Tesla brand is really shiny and really popular. But I do think that it's also not immortal. It's not invincible.
Agreed.
And it's a little tarnished. Finally, the fans, and I totally agree with Patrick in this, that rabid fans are the wonderful base. They help you. They're evangelists. They show up and they volunteer at delivery centers to help people with their cars. What in the hell? In a for-profit company, who goes to the local Ford dealer to help them push out deliveries at the end of the month? Right. Nobody, right. But it does happen with Tesla. Inexplicably happens with Tesla. I also think a lot of those rabid fans are peeing in the pool a little bit. And we're seeing it with journalists and with other people online and in social media, where anytime someone says something even slightly critical of Tesla, they're often dogpiled by Tesla fans, and not even that are sometimes directed by Elon or somebody else saying, look what so-and-so said, and all of a sudden that person gets dogpiled. I don't think that helps the brand. I don't think that helps Tesla. I don't know who it helps. Maybe it helps somebody's ego, but I think it's a bad idea, a very bad idea.
And yeah, again, it cuts both ways. It can be used for good or evil.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of good or evil, number 7, SpaceX.
Oh yeah. So we all, if you're watching this show, I'm going to say all. Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But I'm going to say we all watched the Tesla Roadster get launched into space. That was an incredible event. That was some nice cross-branding they had with SpaceX there. They've continued that Roadster SpaceX connection by having the SpaceX package that's going to be available on the next gen Roadster when that comes out next year. So we'll see how exciting that is. And there's other things too. At first, that was all I thought that this was going to be when I was writing it, and then I started looking into it a little bit more, and I found out that SpaceX shared some aluminum fabrication technology with Tesla, and I don't remember the term. I have it in there. It's cold fusion welding or something. I don't know what it is. No, that's obviously
Cold
not that.
fusion welding. I
Yeah, I
love
said that
that.
wrong. But that's okay.
It sounds cool though.
Yeah, it does. Yeah. So it's this way that they can fuse aluminum pieces together and get a really good seam out of it, where they actually molecularly bond the two versus welding it, and it's a lot stronger and lighter, and weight is important to Tesla's cars, and they use a lot of aluminum in them. Even the S and the X have quite a bit. All the body panels. The 3, it's a lot of them. Less of the frame than the S and X,
yeah.
but still they use a significant amount of aluminum. So having that partner that had spent a lot of time and effort and hired people to figure out how to do that friction bonding. I don't remember the phrase. It was yeah, that's better than what I said earlier. It's closer. And that's just another example. And then there's been some speculation that so we talked about how Tesla has connected cars, and we're going to later talk about their fleet learning for AI. That means they have to collect a lot of data. So if you can do that over Wi-Fi, that's a whole lot cheaper than doing it over LTE, where they have to pay whoever their service provider is for that. And if they say they get Starlink up and working at some point in the future, SpaceX does, they could put receivers at the supercharger stations and Tesla Wi-Fi. The cars pull up, you connect to Wi-Fi, you get connectivity. They collect the data that way. That would be pretty cool connection between Tesla and SpaceX. But of course, we're years away from Starlink. So, but it is a possibility. Somebody in the chat pointed out that SpaceX gets a lot of just media attention for their own stuff, which of course brings Musk back into the news, which of course has a sort of spillover effect onto Tesla, even just indirectly. So yeah, that's another one that I don't even have on the list from a year ago, which totally applies.
Absolutely. You know what? SpaceX is an unalloyed plus for Tesla. No argument there at all. Rockets are cool. SpaceX is doing lots of cool stuff. You know, that 10-second video of the 2 boosters landing simultaneously. I mean, there's nothing that Ford or GM has that comes close to that, right?
Right.
And here's Tesla like, hey, this is what we do on the side, you know? So that's a huge thing. I don't think it's a bad thing. I do want to mention, I think the Starlink thing's never going to happen.
Right. Yeah. That we'll see. Yeah.
I think that's dead meat, dude. That's like residential solar. Like, it was a really good idea, but where's the money for that now? You know,
if SpaceX is launching and they can throw a few of these satellites up in every launch they're doing for somebody else, it makes it pretty affordable for them to get them up there. And then if they can provide it as a service that they make money on, I don't know. We'll see.
There's a lot of ifs there.
Yeah, there is.
And I don't think that's
let's, even if you scratch that one off the list, I'm still going to say SpaceX is.
It's definitely a good thing. I wouldn't take it off the list at all.
Right.
I just, you meant Starlink. I'm sorry. Yes. Yeah. I think Starlink's a fantasy. Let's move on to number 8, recruiting talent.
Right. So if you're coming out of college today and you want to go work at a car company, who's more exciting to work for? Whose stock's been more of a high flyer if you're getting options? Who's got the cool self-driving stuff that's being worked on? It's going to be a lot more difficult for a legacy car company to recruit top talent than it is for Tesla. Tesla's got cool AI projects and cool software and interesting, sexy cars. It's a whole lot easier for them to recruit, I think.
I'm going to disagree with that vehemently for 2 reasons. Number 1, Tesla just fired half of their recruiting staff. Laid them off.
Their HR department shrank.
Yeah, their HR department shrank considerably. Now, does that mean that it was too big? Maybe. it is, but I don't think a company serious about recruiting talent cuts its HR recruiting department by 50%. I think the other thing is, a year ago, even Tesla was the cool place to be. It was
Right.
really awesome. Like, wow, we do all these cool things, and there's Elon and there's SpaceX, and we're kind of related, and you get a discount on SpaceX apparel. I never took advantage of that, which pisses me off to this day. Because I got an employee discount on SpaceX apparel, and I never bought anything.
Oh,
But
man.
anyway, I know, right?
Yeah, that was a huge mistake. I
Yeah,
just
well,
bought some Apollo 11 50th anniversary t-shirts because that's coming up in July. And
yeah.
yeah,
I've been seeing Buzz wearing them, and I'm like, right on, Buzz. Because I'm a
yeah,
Buzz fan. So
he is
anyway,
an awesome guy.
he
Funny on
is.
Twitter too.
Yeah, he is very funny. I don't think Tesla's the cool place anymore. I think it's been made very, very clear. I'm not saying this affects everyone, and I'm not saying that they can't recruit good talent. I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is it's not, it's 30% of what it once was because of the, in my opinion, capricious way that Elon deals with his staff. And if you may think like, "Ooh, I don't want to work at Ford. They're all fuddy duddies." Hey, guess what? Ford's paychecks cash every week. If you work for Tesla and you're doing 60, 70, 80 hours a week, and then 8 months later they cut you, that's not such a cool job.
Very true. That it's well. See, that gets back to my earlier point of a year ago they weren't focusing on profitability to the level that they are now, and I think they did that too soon. That's too bad.
I would agree. Although Tesla has a long history of at the end of every year dumping 10% of their people.
Yeah, that was the old Jack Welch GE method as well.
Didn't it
And
hasn't really worked out so well for Tesla though. I mean, I think they're getting a reputation. This is what I hear and what I read. I'm not an engineer, or, but I think I think you only can burn so many thousand people before it gets out there that it may be a cool t-shirt or a cool name, but it's not so cool to work there.
yeah, I guess, and there are certainly different layers of employees that might be getting different messages too. So yeah, and
Absolutely.
yeah, so again, I'll agree with you that some of the shine is off of it, but I still think it's better positioned than other car companies.
And I'm going to continue to disagree with you because look at the executive churn that Tesla has gone through. Serious top tier executive churn, as well as churn in the middle areas. And then the decimation that they've done to the lower management stuff, which again may or may not have been surplus. I don't know, but they hired them. They did do something for a while, and then they were gone. It's not the cool happening thing. Now it's a little riskier. It may still be cool, but it's a little riskier.
Yeah, and anytime you're going to a company is, let's say the word dynamic is Tesla, there's risk, and yeah, and
Dynamic. I like that.
if your career is there, you're taking a chance, and if you're one who believes in that mission and wants to support them, and you're that kind of a person, then you're willing to take that chance, and hopefully it works out for you. I feel bad for all the people that got cut recently. That's no one wants to get laid off. That sucks.
No, nobody does. Number 9, vertical integration.
Yeah. So I didn't realize this, but most car companies don't make a whole lot of the actual parts that go in the car. They make the engines, and they, in many cases, even outsource the design. And so the thousands and thousands of parts they assemble are all bought from suppliers other than maybe the engine. And Tesla's trying to do the opposite and make a lot of stuff themselves. They still have hundreds of suppliers, so I'm not saying they
Yeah.
make even the mirrors and door handles. I mean, but they if you look at the percentage of the vehicle that they make, it's much higher than most other companies.
So Two things. Number one, vertical integration goes back to what we mentioned earlier with the other aspects of the Tesla business, that whole accelerate the transition towards sustainable energy. So if we ignore solar, fine. Solar's going to go away anyway, in my opinion. So let's ignore that. Let's talk about OEM integration. I have to admit, I don't have any numbers, Patrick. I don't know that Tesla does more of their parts than legacy car companies or not. I don't know that it's entirely true the way you represented it.
Okay. Well, okay. Let me give you two examples.
Yeah, please.
And when Monroe and Associates did a teardown, they went on to Autoline or one of those shows, and he was talking about the super bottle and how this is a part that a lot of the car uses for, I think it was for cooling. And he said that you would never see this in a traditional car company because there are a lot of the different parts of the car that need cooling, but they would not work together because you have your transmission guys that do this, your AC guys that do that, your radiator guys that do this. And whereas Tesla was able to say, okay, we own all of these, and here's how we're designing it so that they all use this super bottle, and it meets all those needs. And if you have a company that is getting parts from different suppliers, those suppliers, it's going to be very difficult to get them to work together to do something like that. There's one example. And then the other one is Tesla does all their own software. We've seen many car companies that are integrating Microsoft or somebody else's software. And so you get into the nav system and it's not going to be able to work together with other parts of the car. So with Tesla, they have their own, they write all their software. So you can put in your destination. It knows how much charge the car has. It doesn't have to go through some other third-party OEM software that may or may not be able to give them that data. And it can compute a route for you. And that is much more difficult to do in other cars, to include the charging stops along the way. Tesla, because they own so much of their stack, so much of their components, they can get all this data. They can say, this is what we need, and go tell the guys that are working on it and say, this is what we need, and get it.
I'm going to disagree with you to the extent that my knowledge of the legacy companies is significantly different. Yes, like Tesla, but maybe more so. Maybe, I don't know. Legacy companies do have suppliers that supply parts to them. That said, all the engineering is done in-house. All the systems integration is done in-house. And these OEMs supply these legacy car companies with parts exactly to their specifications. There's no like, I have to buy this thing off the shelf because so-and-so has it. And now where that occurs with legacy companies, it's a cost-saving measure. Right. Example, Model Y, Model 3, right? Oh, yeah. Lots of the same parts because it saves cost. And that's not a bad thing. No. But I don't think there's this sort of willy-nilly, like we're using Lego bricks from different people to build our cars. I think it's much more orchestrated than that. That's been my experience.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, we're painting it differently. Yep. Well, that's cool.
Yeah. Let's see. Moat number 10. Software.
Yeah, so I've we talked about this one a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, the whole Tesla is a technology company first that happens to make cars, is the way that I view them, and that means that they are willing to have software updates, to have all kinds of different things in their car. And as we've seen, Easter eggs come out all the time. They're now putting Atari games in there, so they have to have that set up. And with other car companies, we've complained so much about the systems that are in there and how they're kludgy and slow, and you press the button and wait 2 seconds before you get anything, and it's painful.
No argument. I think this is where I love the way you just said that, though. A tech company that happens to make cars, like, what are we going to make? I don't know. Let's make cars. I think that says something, but I'm not going to push that too hard, but I agree in that software these days is almost a live or die thing. I mean, look at the crap that Ford's gotten for their partnership with Microsoft, that Toyota has gotten for Intune, things like that. That in one case they bought it off the shelf from somebody else. In another case, it was developed in house, and they were both just like, in some senses, Tesla's benefiting from those rabid fans as owners. And I don't think we hear as much of the negative things as we do from other car companies. I think they get a little bit of cover there. In some instances, people love the Easter eggs and the games and the Atari. I'm going to play, what is it, Missile Command or Night Driver or something? I don't know what it is.
Yeah, they had pole position.
Pole position.
Lunar Lander is the one that I like to play.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, and on one hand, I love that whimsy and I think it's fun. On the other hand, I worry that everything else has to be in order before you start playing around with that crap. Fart mode's cool. Sentinel mode's fun.
Well, Sentinel mode, I think, or Sentry is a Sentinel.
Sentry mode. Sentinel mode. Sorry,
their cars were being broken into. I think that's, so if you want to stop that, you want to get a reputation of being a highly secure car, and that alone will deter a lot of the would-be robbers. So I think that one was not just playing around. Some fart mode in games obviously are playing around, and this gets back to hiring talent. You want to allow your engineers to have some fun time too. If it's just drudgery work, then that's not fun, and they don't do their best work. So giving them these side projects, whether it's a 20% project or whatever, and okay, if you guys get this much done in your sprint, then you can add these in the next one. You can put those out as carrots for the engineers as well as for the owners. So I think that's smart on their part, and not just frivolous.
In the name of time, I'm going to move on to number 11, fleet learning and AI.
Yeah. So as we all know, Tesla's trying to work on full self-driving, and they've got nav on autopilot and automatic emergency braking and lane following, traffic aware cruise control, a lot of these features, and they need feedback on whether or not it's working. And one of the best ways to get that is through deploying it and getting feedback from your users. How many times did they have to take control of the wheel? And then capturing those cases and sending them back and putting them in your training data to improve your AI. So you can argue about whether or not those are all quality miles or not, but nobody has as big a fleet collecting data for the fleet to learn to become better drivers than Tesla. All of their cars have the hardware for it, the cameras, the sonar, the radar. They're collecting this information. They can even collect, if you allow it, because it's user configurable, seconds of video before and after these events. And that is going to be a huge benefit for them in getting this data. I mean, how many cars does Google have out, and how many hours of driving can they do with that? And it's going to be an order of magnitude less than Tesla's. And you could say that, I mean, I threw Waymo in there, but it could be any car company you want to throw in there. Anybody working on an AI drive system.
Sure.
And I tried not to use any Alex Roy trigger words there. We'll see how well I did.
Alex Roy. I need to write that down.
He's very particular about what you say when you say things like full self-driving. That has a particular meaning, and if you don't use it correctly, and that was anyway, that's
I have to, you know what? I'm going to go with Alex on this though. Like, don't call
I'm not saying he's
something
wrong.
it isn't. Yeah.
Yes.
Because this is super important.
It is.
Okay. So a couple of things on fleet learning. One of the things that we've learned in the last year, and the last year has been revelatory in a lot of ways for autonomous vehicle development. Before last year, we were all rushing headlong to a future that was going to be in 2020 or 2021. It's all going to be here. Everything's going to be automatic. Your car's going to make money for you while you're at work. Thankfully, we're past that bullshit now because it is bullshit. Nobody's that close. Tesla claims to be that close just for some regulatory issues, which is a horrible, to me, thin. Do I call it a lie or can I just call it a misstatement? I don't know. Whatever. It's bullshit. Here's the thing. Tesla has bet the farm that their version of full self-drive, using only the cameras and the sensors that they've deployed, will work.
Yep, they
No one
certainly have.
else.
And well, they have radar and sonar as well. So it's not just cameras, but yes, it is primarily camera driven.
Is very primarily camera driven, because didn't Elon himself say that if a human can do it, then they can do it with cameras?
Right. Our road systems are set up to be driven visually.
Right.
Yes.
So the problem has been getting the cameras and the computer systems to do the same work that the human brain does with the visual information that comes through our eyes. That's been the difficult part, and it hasn't worked very well. And it doesn't, in my opinion, it doesn't seem to, it's not coming close. I'm going to ignore the whole, like, whether Tesla should or should not have been collecting money for this.
Right. Yeah. So my point here was not about the marketing or the branding. I'm not going to try to defend those. I was just saying they are in a position to get the data they need to get there. That was the point I'm trying to make.
I'm actually building up to a point here. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean
No. I didn't mean to shut you down. I was just like, I'm actually going somewhere with this bullshit.
Okay.
What I'm saying is that the other thing that Tesla has learned is that the data they collect is very vehicle specific. Again, this is something that Elon said, and maybe somebody else at Tesla, but I'm pretty sure this came directly from Elon, is that one of the things they learned, it was the data collected from even one iteration of like an early Model S versus a newer Model S. That data from that earlier Model S doesn't really translate to the newer Model S. It's a different sensor suite. It's different cameras. And in other words, that earlier data, all of this data that Tesla's been collecting, a lot of it, questionable value. And I think that's a huge thing. And if it turns out that Tesla can't develop the processors necessary to use the visual data and the sensor data that they've already been building into their vehicles, they're screwed. In a big, huge way. There's a huge gamble.
Right. So with an AI system, you train it. And so it's not like they just have software that was written by a team and then they can just port that to the new car. Instead, if the camera locations are different, if the vehicle size is different, they are going to have to retrain. But once you've figured out, okay, this is the situations that we need to have, these are the error cases that we've seen in the past, the second time through, or the third time, or the fourth time through, it's going to be a whole lot faster. And even if you just look at any one of their vehicle lines, the SX3 or eventually the Y, or the Semi or the Roadster, they're going to have a lot of those vehicles out there in a relatively short time, and they can start by having just automatic emergency braking, and then traffic workers control, and then lane assist, and then work their way up their stack, adding features as they go. They don't have to, when the Roadster comes out, say it's level 4, or they can start at the bottom. In fact, when the 3 came out, it didn't even have automatic wipers. They had to train the AI to get that right, and arguably it could still use some improvements. So I'll agree with you that each vehicle is going to have their own challenges, but I still think they're in a great spot because of the size of their fleet and the sensors they have in their fleet and the data that they can collect from it, because they have connected cars. Assuming
all of that data has a value in the end.
Yes.
Right?
Yep.
If it turns out that, hey, we need to change this and we need to change this, suddenly that old data, it's not as valuable as it was. In fact, maybe it's a hindrance. Let's move on, if I may. Next, what am I at here? Number 12, the Supercharger Network.
Oh yeah, this is definitely a advantage that Tesla has. So I I've been driving a Tesla for 3 years now, 2.5, and
Show off.
I started driving electric cars in 2007. So Tesla, I certainly know vehicles outside of Tesla, and
Yeah.
the supercharger network is awesome. And if you're driving a non-Tesla, you find a charging location. It probably only has one or two. They may or may not be working. They may or may not be occupied. They may or may not be iced. And then you may or may not be hosed, depending on how much you needed that charge. And so there's when I drove a non-Tesla vehicle, I had tons of adapters in my trunk, and I could figure out a way to get a charge if things were broken. I could find a campground or an outlet somewhere, and I could do guerrilla charging. And of course, you always have to make sure you're getting permission. And I'm not stealing electricity. Don't stay out of the comment room there.
Are you stealing? Wait, I didn't even say that.
No, I just I could see where I was going in anyway.
Yeah. Patrick steals electricity.
Oh. Yeah, I've made trips in the Tesla that I wouldn't even have attempted in my Leaf or other EVs. I've talked about on the show driving down to San Diego a couple times. I drove to the Seven Wonders of Oregon and visited a bunch of those, to Crater Lake and the Oregon Caves. And these are hundreds of miles in these trips. And the Tesla superchargers make it so easy. And like I talked about earlier, you just punch in a destination and it plots it for you with supercharger stops as needed along the way. It's so easy. And I don't even have all those adapters anymore. When I bought my Tesla, I bought the CHAdeMO adapter thinking, oh, I'm going to need this because I know where all those CHAdeMOs are. But I can go so much farther, and I just stop at Tesla superchargers, which are faster anyway. And for me, free, because I have free supercharging for life. I bought my car in 2016 when that was still a thing. And so the superchargers are an incredible thing. And what is there that's like that to compete with it? The Electrify America is working on something, but it's not yet there. And maybe it will be, and maybe it'll be great. I hope it is, because I want to see all EVs be successful. But even just the mechanics of getting charged up. In my Leaf, I would have to go to a station. I'd have to tap a fob. It may or may not work. I might have to call them. I might have to reset the system. And then if it does work, great. I'm getting charged $7 for that, or whatever the fee is. With Tesla, you just plug in your car and it does everything. The billing happens in the background, and it shows up on your Tesla account. You don't have to tap any fob or anything. Your car is your ticket to the network. It's so much easier.
I'm going to agree with you, Patrick.
Cool. I got one.
You got one. I'm one sort of addendum to my agreement is I'm disappointed that we had to kind of take the bullshit about solar powered superchargers and battery swap and all the other stuff that Tesla thought it was cool to talk about. And honestly never happened. And honestly, they've demonstrated absolutely no intention of making it happen. Now, those are very tiny little things, because for most people that doesn't matter, because the superchargers are there. And you're right. It is the one cohesive branded network that is there. And unless somebody's iced it with their F-150 or something, you go, you plug in, it bills your card. Yay. It's seamless. Any other chargers, generally speaking, much more of a pain, different experience. Totally agree.
Yeah. And even if they have iced a spot with an F-150, there's probably 6, 8, 10, 12 of them there. So you're still fine.
Hopefully. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Unlike most of the other networks that have one or two. Yeah.
Let's talk briefly about workplace and destination charging. That is Moat number 13.
Right. Yeah. So I mentioned that we traveled around and did the 7 Wonders of Oregon. A couple of the places that we stayed had Tesla destination chargers. And it was a courtesy that they had there. One of them had just Tesla, and the other one had Tesla and a J1772. So that was nice. And it's the other Tesla network. So there are a bunch of wineries around here that have Tesla destination chargers, and because Tesla, like we said earlier, has the mindshare, is the cachet, they're the ones most likely to be able to get those destination chargers in those locations. And it's really convenient if you're charging overnight, you're staying somewhere. Even if you're just at a restaurant for a couple hours, you call it convenience charging and just getting a few kilowatt hours to top up, then it's awesome.
I think it's great. I think in a way, it's not a bad thing. There's no bad aspect to it, but it's kind of padding the numbers, but it's cool because it counts. And in the cases where you can access it easily, it's great.
Right. Yeah. Some of the spots even have valets handle it for you so that they can move cars in and out. Yeah, I haven't stayed at one of those. I travel cheaper.
Yeah, I was just going to say, are you a hotel bottom feeder like me? That's me. Not always, but yeah, most of the time. Number 14, Gigafactory.
Yeah. So when Tesla started building their Gigafactory, it was crazy. There was no reason for that. You're not going to need all the capacity. That's you're overbuilding, and now they're in a spot where they can't build enough. And it's a good thing that they invested as much as they did when they did. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to grow as much as they have. They wouldn't be able to do 5,000 cars a week, Model 3 plus another 1,000 a week S and X. It was a gamble, and as we said, Tesla's a company that's not afraid to take a risk, and so far it's paid off well.
My biggest problem, well, aside from the name, which I think is just, I don't know. Anymore, it's just a factory, okay? It's a factory. It's not a giga anything. It's a factory.
Well, I think the point was that it was going to be at least a gigawatt hour.
Whatever it was going
annually,
to be, didn't really get there. You know what I mean? It's what, 40% of what it's supposed to be right now. And that's okay. I get it. So I shouldn't have even led with that. My problem with the Gigafactory concept as Tesla uses it is that in the end, it hasn't been super successful in actually producing products. They produce enough batteries, apparently just barely enough for the vehicles they need. Whenever they produce something for solar, for instance, Australia, Puerto Rico, all of a sudden everything else comes to a slowdown while those batteries go into that project, and then they go back to building cars. Their delivery times on solar stuff have been appalling. And the whole point of the Gigafactory was production. Yet they don't seem to be producing. What does Tesla have a extra inventory on? And I'm not saying that extra inventory is good, but where have they met demand?
Well, so the point here is that if they hadn't invested as much as they did when they did, they'd be even worse off. And that's where most car companies are today. They're dependent on LG Chem or Cattle or somebody else to deliver batteries, and they're all competing for those suppliers. And whereas Tesla has their own supply, and yes, they've been constrained. I'm not going to say they haven't, but they invested a lot of money in it when that was considered really stupid. And in fact, they should have invested more. You're arguing. So the fact that they have a massive battery factory is a huge plus that a lot of other car companies don't have. That's my point.
Absolutely, and I would agree with that again as far as it goes. I just wonder why Tesla's so supply constrained, and well, we'll get into
why don't they
later.
just make more?
Why don't they just make more? And it's funny in a sense, right? But like if you're like 18 months back ordered on Powerwall, where people have $1,000 deposit on a Powerwall, why don't they just make more? Do they not need the money?
Well, no, that's what being supply constrained.
I understand, but what I'm saying is, if this is a gigafactory, then it needs to giga output.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like you're selling things, but you can't deliver them. And that's why I think the gigafactory concept, yeah, maybe they should have built them bigger. I don't know. I'm just, again, if you're a company that's looking for money and trying to sell products, but you can't ship all your products, seems like the solution to that problem is pretty obvious.
Right.
Make more.
Build it bigger. Yeah.
Make more things. Do something. Add in a shift. I don't know what.
Yeah, which gets back to my earlier point of I wish they hadn't focused on profitability yet, because I would like them to you said they're 50% or 60%, they will make it 100%. Let's keep investing in that. And if it means you're not going to be profitable in Q1 because you had a big capital expense, okay, it sets you up better for 2020. Let's get there.
We'll have to talk about that if we have some time at the end.
All right.
Next up, investor expectations, Moat 15.
Yeah, I've been that I just talked about this. With if you're a legacy car company, Ford pays a nice dividend. I don't know what it is, 6% or something. And so the people that are invested in Ford expect that dividend, which means they expect quarterly profits from that company. And they're not looking for the stock to double. They've invested as a dividend investor for the most part. And so they want consistent, reliable profitability from a company. And when you have come to an inflection point in the industry like this, it is a huge investment to change. Honda is the biggest motor company or engine company in the world, right? That they are an engine company that puts it in a lot of different stuff. But that doesn't mean that they have electric vehicle expertise or battery expertise, motor controllers, electric motors. To ramp up all of that, like we just talked about, I wish Tesla would have invested more in their Gigafactory. And I wish they would have invested more in their supercharger network. There's lots of places that still, don't have one within a 10-minute drive. And not that they need to be that ubiquitous, but for a legacy car company to say, oh, we're going to go and we're going to invest $5 billion in this, $10 billion in that, another $5 billion in this, and we hope that we'll make money on that in 2025. But it'll be okay because that's what we need to do. Their investors are going to freak out. In fact, one of the best things, ironically, that I think could have happened to VW with the Dieselgate scandal is that they are now being forced to build a charging network. And because those were penalty dollars, they can justify it to their shareholders. And now they're building this network that's really going to help Porsche and Audi and their electric cars when they come out. And they would not be doing this if they weren't being forced to. But ironically, I think it's going to help them long term.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, having investors in Tesla who have completely different expectations. It was a startup and a growing company going into a new market where they needed to build factories, they needed to build charging networks, they needed to have R&D into these new technologies, and everybody who bought their stock understood that, knew they were taking a risk in this company that could disappear if things went horrible, and it's completely different from the person holding a stock looking for a 6% dividend. What say you, Russell?
What say you? I think your point is right as far as it goes. But I guess investors in Tesla are an interesting group.
Yes.
I think it breaks down into a few different categories. I think there's one group that are true believers. That's you. I don't say that in a mean way. You know what I mean?
Right.
But
yep.
It could be me if I had the money. Maybe,
yeah.
Although I probably would have bailed out of this because I'm not a gambler. But I mean, they're true believers that are just there. It doesn't matter. Whatever the price is, I'm here because I know in the long run, this is going to be a successful company and I want them to be successful. And then there are the day traders and the speculators who love the volatility. It's up, it's down, it's up, it's down. I made $5,000 today. I lost 10 grand yesterday. You know what I mean? Like it's all over the place. And that's fun, right? That's how you make money. If the stock goes from $45.20 one day to 3 months later, $5.22, You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, you don't see 20% swings in most legacy car companies like you. Certainly,
in
Tesla is highly volatile.
very volatile for a company its size. Is
Yes.
that fair? I mean,
Yep.
penny stocks,
Mhm.
sure, right? They, one day it's 2 cents, the next day it's 17 cents. Yay! But I mean, we're talking about the difference between what, $250 and $350?
Yeah, and I don't have the market cap numbers off the top of my head, but that's really what we should be looking at. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know. Investor expectations. I guess this is a moat. I'm not really sure.
Well,
I
yeah,
guess it's a good thing that the investors don't expect a dividend, right? As you
right.
pointed out.
Yeah, if anybody's looking for a safe stock, they're not buying Tesla.
No,
And
not if
if
they're sane.
right, exactly, which means that the investor community doesn't often freak out at Tesla when they do risky things because they have a history of doing risky things and they know that's what's required for them to be successful in some cases. So, yeah, it's a different class of investor with different expectations for that company versus others.
There you go. Are you ready?
Oh, yeah, this is going to be a good one.
The penultimate moat on this show, moat number 16, Rockstar CEO.
Yeah. So, Musk tweets and it makes news. That is
24 million?
that is not so true with other car company execs. And we've talked about how many things can be a double-edged sword. And his fame, his notoriety, his popularity is definitely one of the things that can work for and against the company. But what's the expression? I'd rather be talked about than ignored. So Musk in news stories and clickbait articles in his name carries weight, and that can be a benefit to Tesla. And it means that they can get a lot of press when they're doing an event without spending a lot of dollars on it, which is huge. They don't have to take out Super Bowl ads or double page spreads in the whatever times. And so that's certainly one moat that they have that other companies would love to have, might use in different ways, but would certainly love to have that media attention. I tried to caveat it so you couldn't come back at me, but maybe I did, maybe I didn't. If I just said, "Oh, Elon rocks it, everybody loves what he says," you could just shoot me down, but I did not say that.
25.4 million followers on Twitter.
Yeah.
25.4 million followers on Twitter. And if I was thinking ahead, I would have checked, like Mary Barra's and Jim Hackett and Jim Lentz's follower account on Twitter. I don't even think Jim Lentz is on Twitter.
Right. Yeah. That's why he can sell flamethrowers and hats and surfboards and sell out, because he has that big of a following, and if they need a little capital, they can do a toy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Isn't it wonderful that they can make money on hats and flamethrowers?
and fire extinguishers. Can you see it? Where is it? Is it?
So for me, this is the sharpest double-edged sword that we're going to talk about tonight. This is the most dangerous and the most potential good. You've talked about the most potential good, and that everything Elon farts out on Twitter, 25 million people see and react to and retweet and argue about, and there's news stories the next day. It is singular for, as far as off the top of my head, for any CEO on Twitter. I mean, it's amazing. But again, that also means that when he starts calling people pedophiles or starts making 420 jokes or blah, 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 doing whatever else Elon does that he thinks is
funding
hilarious,
secured.
It can drag the stock down. It can drag morale down. He can make announcements on Twitter that aren't super well considered sometimes and then end up having to walk them back. Musk is the glue that holds Tesla together, which is scary because, when I was a retail store manager, my district manager said, you're not a good manager until your assistant can take over your store. You can get killed and nothing happens. The next day, everything just goes on.
Yeah. Yep. I agree with that. Succession planning. I like to. A bunch of people that I've worked with said, "Oh, it's if you were hit by a bus." I'm like, "Why is it? What? How about just win the lottery and say, screw you guys, I'm out."
There you
Let's
go.
do
That's
that story.
better.
I like that ending much better for how I train my succession.
So Elon wins the lottery. No, wait. See,
Okay, maybe that one doesn't apply to a billionaire.
supply.
That's
So
funny.
Elon gets hit by a bus. No, and Twitter, what happens to the stock? What happens to the company? What happens to the mission? And I think
Yeah.
this is where Elon Musk's stewardship of Tesla really gets called into question, because I think Elon has been as much involved in taking care of his legacy and his celebrity and his fame as he has been in taking care of his company.
Yeah, so you mentioned executive churn earlier, and
Yeah.
Tesla has a thin C-suite. They don't have a whole lot of people that could step in and take over for him. And one of the things that many people have said is that he needs someone like Gwen Shotwell at Tesla.
Everybody
And
says that, and I'm
yeah,
not sure I believe that.
well, if you have somebody running the company day to day, then his presence isn't as important other than supplying the bigger vision, right? And the comment, if you have a a C-suite of people that are you have presidents and you have people who are in charge of manufacturing and people in charge of technology, and you have 8 or 10 of them instead of the 2 or 3 that they have a CFO, a COO, uh, and
CIO.
Jerome's
Yeah.
president of automotive, right? I mean, their C-suite is pretty thin for a company that's their size,
And
and I would like to see them correct that. Not because I think that they have to, just in general as a healthy company. I think that's important. People need to be able to take vacations and recharge and not drive themselves ragged to the point that they're tweeting at 4:20 a.m. about on Ambien and so for all of their mental health, I think they need to have more people who can take over and run the company.
I think it goes deeper than that, though, Patrick. And again, we may just disagree on this, but I think what Elon has done is created a culture in Tesla. He's created a house of cards where everyone's job is to keep Elon happy. No one's really focused on their job. And I'm not talking about like people building cars per se. Although, how many stories have we heard about Elon walking out in the factory and just going, "You're not fast, get out of here." You know what I mean? Like, because the CEO needs to be on the factory floor to make sure the paint guy is doing his job.
Yeah,
That's
that level of
crazy.
micromanagement is
That is
crazy.
crazy. And that is self-important, megalomaniacal micromanagement. And I think Musk is so far out of control that I think he's hurting Tesla more than he's helping them. I just, and I don't know, the reason I say that is a huge of a benefit is I don't know that he can change. I don't know that he can change that around to strengthen that structure in Tesla. I don't know that it's in his DNA to do that. I think he is who he is. I think he's always been who he is. You know what I mean? And you either love that or not. Um, it's uh,
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly examples when Steve Jobs died, Apple didn't fall apart the next day,
nope,
right?
sure didn't. Everybody
So
thought Tim Cook was going to run it into the ground.
right, so you can speculate of what will happen after, and it may or may not be the case. And Bill Gates leaving Microsoft, he had successors and moved into a different role, and they've continued to be quite successful, and went in whole different ways with their data center products and their gaming products than they probably would have gone under his direction. So um, we really don't know what would happen if he were to step away. And like you said, there are good and bad aspects to his leadership, and there could be a lot of things that are improved if he did.
Hey, we might find out really soon what happens if Elon steps away.
The SEC might help us realize.
Yeah. And I mean, again, does a CEO who's concerned about his business first and not his ego, does he do what he's doing with the SEC? Does he go on Twitter to his 25 million followers, go, "I don't respect the SEC. It's the the short enrichment commission? Do you poke that bear that hard if you're really concerned about your company? I'm not saying you should acquiesce if he feels he's right. What I'm saying is he's the manager of a corporation. And does he always have the best interest of that corporation? David in the chat room says, so why does SpaceX seem well run? Right. There's Shotwell, of course. And I think SpaceX isn't doing that much. Okay. It's making some rockets, and I'm not running SpaceX down, but SpaceX and Tesla, definitely not 1-to-1. Okay.
Right. Yes, I would totally agree with that. They have a different type of customer that they're going after. The way they have to approach that customer is different. So very different companies.
Right. And the NSA and NASA are both questioning Elon's stewardship, shall we say, after the whole smoke and dope on the Joe Rogan show thing. That's not seamless management. And I have no problem with him smoking dope. Should he have done it on a podcast? Probably not.
Yeah, that was you will not find a lot of people saying that was a smart move.
No, it was an exceptionally bad move, again, for somebody who's what Tesla's worth $50 billion some odd dollars,
right,
give or take. Maybe it's 49 today. I don't know. I think part of the other problem is that so many people, there's Tesla and there's Elon. And I think a lot of people are Elon fans. And even within the Tesla corporate culture, they really play up the whole Elon fan thing. Very much, like, to a scary extent. When I'm a Tesla fan, I don't care who runs Tesla. It doesn't matter who runs Tesla. The idea of what Tesla is doing is what inspires me, is what gets me passionate about it. Elon, in my opinion, just gets in the way. If Elon can make Tesla run better and successful, then that's fantastic. But I want to see Tesla succeed. I don't give a shit about Elon Musk's success.
When he was founding it, he had no intention of being the CEO.
I'm sorry, right? When he was doing what? You mean buying into it after two other people started it? Is that what you're the only reason he could say founder is because he got into a civil lawsuit with them.
Right. Yeah. And that was the outcome that they were all labeled co-founders.
Co-founders, right.
Martin Eberhard.
Tarpening? Mark Tarpening?
Yeah, Mark Tarpening and Wright. What was his first name?
Oh, God.
Anyway.
Yeah. Bad. Without resorting to Google.
Right.
So it's... I don't care. Whatever. I get it. We all have egos. Elon had enough money to say, I'm a founder. Fine. He's been there long enough. He can be a founder, I guess.
Okay, but my point there was that he had no plans on being the CEO. He was the chairman of the board, and that's where he was going to stay, much like the way Solar City was, where he has other people running the company, and he's the chairman of the board.
I can't believe you even said Solar City.
Yeah, they were a great company. It's too bad that they didn't stay independent a little longer, but things went south.
They would have gone down the bowl if they'd stayed independent longer.
Exactly. Yeah, which is too bad.
Yeah, very bad. It's a shame, but whatever. You know what I mean? Like so Tesla bought them. Elon got his payout, and now Solar City's gone. They are doing 70% or more less business. They have no representation in the Tesla stores currently. It may as well have gone out of business.
Well, hopefully the Phoenix rises this year. We'll see.
Got a beer? Calendar year 2019, got a beer? Because I definitely have a beer for that one.
All right. Yeah, I think I just bought you a beer.
I think you did, yeah. I appreciate that.
I'm hopeful.
And you know what? I respect optimism. Let's do the final one. The Dreadnought.
Yeah. So I did in this article have a lot of caveats on this one, and I was not saying this was a Tesla moat. I mean, it's up there from a year ago. You can read it yourself. But my point was that Tesla, they are trying things in new and different ways, and they very well could, because they're willing to take chances, they're willing to try things, even though other companies have said, "Oh, that would never work." Well, we have new sensors, we have new vision systems. Maybe we can figure it out. Maybe the technology is advanced so that something that didn't work 10 years ago now is possible today. And I appreciate a company that's willing to make mistakes, skin their knees, get up, and keep going. And it could be that they end up with a great system that does things better than it has been done in the past.
Okay. So the alien dreadnought was a failure.
Right.
The machine that builds the machine was more bullshit. It was an interesting idea, and I certainly can't argue with you that if you don't take risks, you won't innovate.
Right.
That said, I think you take judicious risks and you look to innovate where you actually see inefficiencies, where you see opportunities to leapfrog your competitors. You don't just, from first principles, one of Elon's favorite phrases.
Yes, it is.
You don't, from first principles, imagine a whole new system without actually having any idea if it's going to work. They spent a ton of money. They wasted a lot of time, and it didn't work. And now we're tooling up for Model Y. Now, at some point, we're going to have a factory in China to fill with machines. Anybody want to bet we're going to hear the alien dreadnought bullshit again? Because I'm willing to bet we will.
Oh, yeah. I bet we will, too. And one of the things that they gave some good examples like Flufferbot of things that did not work. And that it's a whole lot better if you're picking up something soft and malleable to have a person do it than a machine. But what are the ones that did work? And they put people in where the system wasn't working, and that doesn't mean that there aren't success stories where they're able to crank out certain parts or do certain assemblies way faster than they were before that effort. I don't think that it was all a failure.
Really? What's your evidence of that?
Yeah. Well, the guys that they bought, Groman Engineering, right?
Mm-hmm.
Those are guys who were pros at this. That was their job. They did systems automation. I think that they have a factory that's cranking out thousands of cars a week.
How many cars a week?
Yeah. I'm not saying that they're the fastest and that's not my argument. I'm just saying that that doesn't mean that's not the only measure. And I'm sure there are some parts that worked great.
You, Patrick, are part of the problem here. And I'll explain
so
why.
Here's my rabbit. I'm giving them cover, as you said.
You're giving them cover.
Yeah.
They failed. They need to reevaluate what they do and do something different. Perhaps those legacy companies' best practices for manufacturing know something that Tesla doesn't. And if Tesla wasn't run by an exceptionally arrogant person, they would go, okay, if we fall back, we do this. We're not reinventing the wheel here. We can do this. Maybe they would hit some of those production targets. Instead, they're still in, it's almost April of 2019. And how many Model 3s are coming off the line every week? It isn't 7,000. It isn't 10,000. It's under 5,000 and probably way under that.
Yeah. So they have admitted some mistakes, and, but that doesn't mean that you just go and do it like everybody else. That would be limiting their ability to innovate.
That would be limiting their inability to declare bankruptcy. I mean, in the end, they've got to make stuff and sell it, or they go out of business.
Agreed. Yeah.
And that's and this is one of my fundamental arguments with Tesla is that they sell dreams. They don't sell products. I want them to sell products because I want those products to be out in the marketplace, replacing products that aren't as good for us and for our society. I want electric cars out there. I want solar out there.
Yeah, so do I.
Because those are good things, not just because I love Tesla, but I want those products out there because we need them. So I appreciate Elon's experiment, but I want him to be able to admit when he's wrong and then do it right. and correct it and then make the products and push out 5,000 or 7,000 or 10,000 Model 3s a week. That's what I
Yeah.
want.
And I see that, humans were underrated comment as a mea culpa from him.
Yeah, but I don't think he believes it. Anders wants to know what's wrong with the dreams. There's nothing wrong with the dreams, but if your dreams run you bankrupt, they're nightmares.
Yeah, I absolutely agree that the point is making the products, but the aspirational parts of it are important too. That's what excites people about the future. Is what excites people about going and looking into the products in the first place, and how they get a market for them.
Nobody cares how it's made. Nobody gives a rat's ass how it's made. They just want it.
Yeah, but this is, well, okay. I'm not. I don't want to defend what you were calling bullshit, but having a company that is seen as innovative and even in the way that things are being made is a part of that. I'm not saying that they should be lying about it, or but they certainly can be trying to do it in new, better ways.
I wouldn't argue with you. I agree again, but I want them to learn. I don't want them to be so stuck on innovating and first principles and all this other stuff that they ignore that, hey, guess what? You don't have to reinvent the wheel. You can use some of these other practices to get your product out. And if that keeps you profitable for another year or two, or gets you money to finish out your factory in China or whatever it is you need, then that's a good way to do it.
Right. Yeah. Which is why doing things like buying Groman Engineering, those were people that knew the cutting edge that everybody else was using and how they were making cars and what worked and what didn't, because they were supplying those solutions to those guys. And they've also hired people from manufacturing at other companies as well. So,
yeah. Okay, Patrick, wrap it up, baby.
Okay. So this is from carswithcords.net, where I occasionally blog, although I haven't done it for quite a while. I've got a few things in the hopper. I did what to expect from Tesla in 2019, and within a week, like 2 or 3 of them were already checked off as done, and another one last week. So
yeah.
I'm going to have to do what to expect of Tesla in the second half of 2019, because they've already checked a bunch of stuff off my list.
It's a hard company to keep up with. Right?
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, well, I think overall this sort of moat discussion and breaking it down this way is really interesting. At least it is for me.
Yeah, I'm actually surprised how much of this holds up a year later, because as we talked about, they are a dynamic company.
Is that a dog tail behind you?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you had a dog. The things we learn. Yeah, and listen, I'm not, well, I think everybody knows how I feel. I'm not here to bring Tesla down. I'm here to hopefully help them survive. That's what I want. I want them to survive. I want Tesla to survive. I don't give a shit about Elon Musk.
Yeah, it's constructive criticism. Yeah.
I think so. I mean,
we should all be good with that. Yeah.
And nowhere am I saying Tesla just sucks. Ford should buy them out. You know what I mean? Like,
they'll be dead tomorrow. No,
yeah, that would never come out of my mouth. Right. So you can read the original article. It is from March of 2018 at carswithcords.net. And maybe I'll post my written thing. Did you said you just took notes, right?
So it's on a Google blog, and they just a lot of the comments were from Google Plus, and as you know, Google Plus is now gone. So
yeah,
a lot of the comments that used to be on my posts are now all history, and that's really too bad. So I don't know if that's how you, because I know you commented on it and we discussed it, but
I did, yeah.
Yeah, they might have been Google Plus comments. I don't know.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, it does.
Thanks, Google. Oh wait, they're going to shut us off. Everything goes dark all of a sudden. That's why. Well, we'll figure out a way. But thanks very much for watching this. Patrick, thanks for taking up time with your Sunday so we could talk about this, because I was really like, oh, this is going to be a great conversation. And nice job, by the way, sir. Fantastic conversation. Even if we disagree on, I think actually we disagreed on less than I thought.
Yeah.
That's kind of crazy.
Yeah.
I
It's a
really
good
should.
conversation to have when here are the hairs that we're splitting, and why do you think they matter? And I think we both had good points on, okay, that is important. You can't just ignore that. And yeah.
Yeah. I don't even think it's hair splitting. I mean, I don't think we're parsing weird little things just to argue. These are major issues in some cases, or in most of these cases.
Yeah, I'd agree.
So I think that's why it's important. Thanks to everybody in the chat room, Anders and David. I don't know if anybody else hung out. It looked like 010 was in there for a bit, and Zachary was there. So thanks for those of you in there. By the way, we do a show called What Drives Us, which broadcasts live every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. You can watch us here. If you're watching this, please hit that subscribe button and then hit the little bell so that you get notified every time we do something weird like this, and you can watch us and you can insult us in the chat room and tell us why we're wrong. Because we read that stuff, believe it or not. It matters. Patrick, anything else on the way out?
No, thanks. This was great.
Awesome. Thank you so much for that. Everybody, have fun. Tune in every Wednesday and find out what drives us.